addendum to the Maisa Rabbi Miller that said that that bacher that he flew to Denver to meet had a son in this yeshiva who was finished Shas. So it just keeps going. Also, the Eilim doesn't know who Rav Naftali is, so maybe some of the stories lost a little bit of what the influence was of the Shver. I'm not talking about you, Rav Naftali, I'm talking about my Shver, but what he accomplished. Rav Naftali, besides being the executive director in Derech Chaim, but he started an organization called Chasdei Leiv, which every mechanech in the tri-state area and beyond, and it keeps growing and growing, gets tremendous help for both Sukkot and Pesach. It's a multi-million-dollar operation at this point, I'm sure. It's done big covered rab like you can't imagine. And Naftali started this organization, he runs it on the side, besides what he's now a tremendous askin in the Agudah. The Shver used to go and watch the distributions of Chasdei Leiv, because all the Chasdei Leiv, the people, the Askanim, and the people who were involved in it were his Talmidim. So he went to Sheb Nachas, but he went to show them how much Nachas he's getting from them. That's why he went. So when you hear about a 13-year-old boy who came to Adelphia and who was in Meshver Shir, and that 13-year-old boy is somebody who made a whole Ma'pecha and Askanis and Chesed and thousands of Rabbeim and Mechanchim's lives around the country. That's one small example of a change that every Mechanich in this room is nana from on a constant basis. Anybody who's been in Carteret for any length of time has heard the last few years, every single time Shver spoke in the yeshiva, he would get up and he would tell the story that Ramat Solomon was here in Carteret dancing in the streets with the Sefer Torah. The sun came out and the snow stopped. So the Kedusha and Tara, Ramat Solomon dancing with the Sefer Torah in the streets of Carteret. I say everybody's nodding their heads. Everybody, every single time, certainly for the last 5 years that he spoke in Carteret, he would tell this over. I was thinking last week, why did he feel such a need to tell this over? So, my Shver knew what living in Carteret and what being in Carteret, smaller than Adelphia or Rabbi Goldman. There's not yet a mezumin there's mezumin if we count, children, but children by mitzvah age. But otherwise, when the yeshiva is not here, there's two families that live in Carteret. And part of his being mechazik, both Rabbi Meir and myself was telling us constantly that the Gedolei Adar and Talmidei Chachamim and all the things that go along with everything else. But he wanted to tell us that what we're doing here, and he wanted to tell the Bacher, and what he wanted to tell everybody else, is what we're doing here is something that is Payul and Dailamas. And that's why he did it. He wasn't saying it because he was nisbal from the nace of the sun coming out. I don't know if there was a nace, there wasn't a nace. But that's why he constantly emphasized that point, to be mechazik, like he did everything else, to be mechazik somebody else. Everything he did was to be mechazik. To me, maybe some of you won't find this as mind-blowing a story as I found it. But I found that all the stories I heard during Shiva, this to me was my shvager, Shmuel Engelson Shlita, was in the room when my shver, Zecher Levracha, called Rebbitzin Risha Cutler to tell her how well Reb Malkiel Cutler spoke. Now, good. My shver's job, he viewed his life's mission to be mechazik bach. No, he's calling Rebbitzin Cutler to tell her that her son, who's the biggest Rosh Yeshiva in the world, right, spoke well. Why did he do that? Because he knew it would make her feel good. It's going to make her feel great. She knows her son is a huge Talmud Chacham and speaks well. Doesn't matter. It's going to be mechazik somebody. It's going to bring somebody simcha. So that's what he did. He picked up the phone and he called her. And he happened to be in the room at the time, my shvager. But otherwise, first of all, A, we wouldn't know. But B, it sounds like he did that Often. He did that to her several times. If he did that to her, I would imagine other Rebbitzins, other Chashuva Rebbitzins also got similar phone calls. But that one, who thinks of that? Who thinks to call Reb Malkiel's mother to tell her how well he spoke? Nobody sits by Reb Malkiel's drasha thinking about her mother. But that's the way he thought. And then he acted on those thoughts. I mentioned that at the Levaya, but I think it's a kuda that everybody here can. The thing that struck me the strongest when I first joined the family was how much my shver was mechabed his mother. His mother lived in Brooklyn by Zevi Trenk, an apartment, and he used to go from Philadelphia, mixed in with the whole schedule that Rabbi Goldman mentioned, and there are other parts of that schedule that people are trying to figure out when they fit in that schedule, including carpool and driving all over and etc., flying to Denver. And he would go at least 3 times a week. And certainly if there was anything going on, she had a sniffle, but besides that, he would go 3 times a week, drive to Brooklyn, say hello to his mother, turn around and come back to Philadelphia. After she was nifter, he went to his Acha Gadol, his older brother, Chaim Yitzchak, Zechariah Livracha, and do the same thing, and his older sister. Same thing. He would go and visit 3 times a week, 4, I don't know exactly how many times, but on a constant basis, he would just pick up, drive to Brooklyn, which was whatever 2-hour drive with traffic on a normal time, and turn around and come back, just on a constant basis. That, first of all, it was an Abba, but it was keep it aim, keep it ach, keep it up, achais. He just ran to, he knew it would make him feel good to see him. He went, he did. I lived in Yeshiva Lane, off on 401 Yeshiva Lane. With Zeicha, Rav Kolevsky, Zechariah Livracha, who in his last couple of years was the Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael, but before that he was the Maggid Shir for 50 years in Ner Yisrael, lived in the building. So the last night of Shiva, on Matzai Shabbos, I met a chaver of mine, Rabbi Rattenberg, who also lived in the building with Rav Kolevsky. We both lived together. And Rav Moshe told me that Rav Kolevsky was a neighbor. So, he would schmooze with him, like not like a friend of his, obviously, but he was friendly with him. He would schmooze with him in learning. Rav Kolevsky didn't talk about anything else. I'm talking, of course, in learning. But my shver once came to us for Shabbos, and he saw like he was cowering in front of Rav Kolevsky, and he said to himself, "If this is Rabbi Trenk is like bepachad noira from Rav Kolevsky, what am I doing?" That's what he told me about Tzei Shabbos. He was like that with all Talmidei Chacham. He was mevapel himself to Talmidei Chacham, and I'm talking about his Rabbi, which maybe we'll get. But Talmidei Chacham, there were many more Gedolim in Klal Yisrael, according to my shver, than according to anybody else. This person is a gadol and that person is a gadol. They were Talmidei Chachamim, man, don't get me wrong, but that they were Gedolei Yisrael, I mean, Rav Shach was the gadol Adar. There's 5 or 6, maybe there's more than that. I don't know, depending how you count. No, but my shver, he's from the Gedolei, and that's how he acted to them. That's how he related to them as mamish, as any Talmid Chacham, and certainly somebody who is bigger than a regular Talmid Chacham is b'pachad noir. And that takes the Maisa that Rabbi Goldman said, that he would jump up at a Torah Maseret convention and be meichel, l'kavod his bachrim, l'kavod these bachrim that have nobody speaking up for them. It takes that and triples what he did, because he was b'pachad noira from those gedolim. He was, you talked about rebellious faith to him, he was the real God. And but to speak up for his boys, there was not. How can you even talk about kicking out a bacher? It shouldn't even be on the table by a term of circumvention. There can't be such a thing. He would jump up. And in later years, he said, they don't want me there. So he told me, they don't want me to come. But he went there. I think he went until this. But that was, he had this covenant Torah, but he was mevatel that covenant Torah, if we want to say it that way, when it came to those books. He learned by his great Rabbi Shmuel Brudny, and for his whole life, he could imitate exactly what Rabbi Shmuel Brudny did, not in general, what he did by each shir. He could tell you over, he would tell you over the Ray that Rabbi Shmuel Brudny said on this sugya, or the Rabbi Ber that he spoke at on that sugya, with the motions, or with the exact things that he did during the shir. He would imitate him. I remember when I joined the family, my Shraga Shia would imitate his Rabbi. He came from that. He would imitate his Rabbi, not to Chas V'Shalom make fun of them. Carteret, because he absorbed every nuance of what they had to give over. And a whole life, he considered himself a Talmud of Shul Brudny to the extent that his children, Rabbi Brudny's Shlita, he would keep a kesher with them like they were a mishpacha with him, because he was, just like he viewed himself as the Av of all his Talmidim, he viewed himself as a Ben of Rabbi Shmuel Brudny. There's no question. And anybody who was related or connected, he viewed himself as a member of their family, and they viewed him as a member of their family, because that's how he acted. Everything he gave over as, this is what I was mekabel for my Rabbi. Naftali mentioned before that he was mekabel things from Rav Kamenovitz, the Rav, the Yeshiva of the Mir, Rav Kamenovitz, and these Rabbeim that he had in the Mir, a whole life he viewed himself as being mamshach their Messiah. And then he went to Baltimore. He was a dorm counselor for 1 year in Baltimore. And the whole life, at least with me, because I was in Baltimore, but he would always be miyaches back to that 1 year. I think he learned with Rabbi Weinberg that year, and he told me when I got married, he asked Rabbi Weinberg, maybe the schus that he had, that 1 year he was there, maybe that's how he was Zeicha to Nar Yisrael son-in-law. But I think the real schus is he was Zeicha to Rabbi Berkowitz as his mechutin, and my father as his mechutin. Maybe that's the real Nar Yisrael. The real Nar Yisrael schus. But he was miyachas back to that, and then he went back to the Mir. He became a Rebbe. He was in Kedel a little time, and then he became a Rebbe for all the boys in all the grades that couldn't go into any other class because nobody else would have them. And I heard he told my shviger when he was considering moving to Adelphia and joining the Yeshiva in Adelphia, so who's going to take these boys? He said, they won't have the class in the Mir, they'll come with him to Adelphia. But in other words, from Rashis Bikurov, so to speak, that's what he was. He was somebody who was just like Rabbi Naftali mentioned, that he could have said a shir, he could have been a Rashiva, he wasn't a Rashiva in that, but he wasn't interested in that. He was interested in being mechazik bachrim, teaching bachrim and taking bachrim that nobody else saw their milas. Nobody else knew who they were. That's how he viewed it. Nobody else knew who they were, and turning them into what they could become. Even before that, he was a pirchei. I can't imagine him as a pirchei leader. 30 years later, he was jumping over tables. So what was he as a pirchei leader? It's hard to imagine. But he viewed Rav Josh Silverman's Zechariah Lebracha as a Rebbe of his and how to teach these kind of talmidim, and how to get people excited. He always used to say over that his Rebbe in RJJ, when he was 11, 12 years old, he used to tell them, if you're good and you behave and you learn well, I'll tell you the kasha in Taisvis. Like the reward of learning. What's the reward of learning? More learning. Givaldig. If you do this and you learn well, I'll tell you Taisvis is kasha. When he said it over, you could see him reliving that moment. That it was so exciting to hear what Taisvis' kasha was as 11, as a 12-year-old boy. The Rebbe made the reward of learning was learning. He once told me, you never give a reward, you give off. You learn well, you get extra recess. He told me that's not because exactly that's the reverse of this. What you're telling boys is being off is geschmack. That's not what you tell boys. You tell them what learning more is more geschmack. If you can learn this, you can learn more, you can get more out of it. So, like Rabbi Goldman said, he was a Rebbe, all this, the Ava and everything else, but he had a cheshbon and how he gave things over also. Somebody said that they came into the classroom once, and he was hanging outside the window with his head in the window upside down, teaching class. That'll get kids' attention, that's for sure. Everyone's attention, that doesn't sound like you have to be in very good shape to do that also. But the excitement that he gave over in the etzem teaching was also a focus. It was also something that he gave over. That the learning itself is so geschmack. It's not just that I love you. It's not just that you're Gevaldi. But learning Torah and Torah is so geschmack. There's nothing greater than that. And teaching that and giving that over was something that was a major chalik of his success. Somebody called this afternoon, they asked, the Hespedim are open to the public, he said he wants to come. His father, Shabbat Rafu Shalema, was the Menal in Shari Tzion when my children went. And my Shver knew him from earlier years. And he's sick, he's not well. And my Shver used to go visit him every day. I knew he used to go visit him. I knew it was every day. He said we used to go visit him every day. And he would go, we would come for Shabbos, so the Suda would be 1, 2 o'clock. Why? Because he was walking all over Lakewood to go to this Talmud Simcha and this person's Simcha and visit this sick person and that sick person, just to be mechazek. Go to this minyan where maybe some there are bachrim that daven at 9 o'clock and they could use some chizuk, somebody jumping up and down during laning. I don't know exactly, but I didn't follow him around. But so it would take 3-4 hours after davening. He would often daven Vasikin. Certainly in the earlier years in Lakewood, he would daven always Vasikin. And then he would be going around Lakewood to all the thinking of all the people who he could be mechazik. And then make them excited that they saw him, and therefore, and give them some simcha, and therefore that the Suda started 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, depending on the Shabbos and exactly what was going on. And during the week, it was just that he would drive. He would do the exact same things, but he wouldn't walk. I mean, he would walk also. When he walked, there were a few times I walked with him, he would either talk to me but he would say Yavamas Balpeh. I mentioned by the Levi also. He would say he knew because he learned Yavamas by Shmuel Brudnik, so Yavamas became his Mesivta. It was mentioned that he used to teach it as often as he could. In high school, he would teach it. He would take out the mentions and he would teach Yavamas. But he loved Yavamas. He loved Yavamas. He knew with all the rain and everything. But he knew the Gemara's Balpeh. I mentioned by the Levi, but it's kedai to say over it. This Pesach after the Seder. This Pesach after the Seder, so he was already very, very sick, and it was very late. It was 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was very schwach. And he asked me to read him the Gemara in Yevamos. So I happened to be up to Daf Lamed Beis. I put Lamed Beis. He said, "Go back to the Lamed Aleph." I think if I remember right now. The Mishnah on the top. I started reading, and I messed up a word, and he corrected me. He wasn't looking inside. He was half asleep. He was really not. But he knew about that. He just knew about that. He would say, he could look down and there's his nashim. Oh, that's Bobasa Daf Chaf. I don't know if he knew all Shas Balpeh with the Tzur Sadaf. That I'm not willing to say. Maybe he did. I don't know. But he certainly knew an awful lot of Torah. Not only that, every vart he said would be on his theme. What I mean by that is he would, whatever parsha it was, right? There was an Orach Chaim HaKadosh that said something about being mechazik talmidim, or about that's the Orach Chaim HaKadosh that he would say over in that parsha. And if there was some cipher, so that was some cipher. If it was whatever it was, he would look. he would learn looking for those Maramekaimis that he could bring out this Yisai, how great everybody is, how great Klal Yisrael is, how great Talmidim are, how a Rebbe should act with a Talmud. Those were the things he focused all his learning around that, around the house. Every sefer in the house has little slips of paper in it. All the books in the house with all the stories also. And a lot of them have written in front what page to look at, and that's all his Torah, all his Verlach, all his Meissen that he would always say over are marked off in all the Svarim and all the books because he wanted to be able to find it when he needed it the next time. But everything was focused around this. What in this parsha he knew Rashi, Chumash Rashi Kol. Chumash Rashi Kol. He's the Shariarans, he knew all the Mahalchim, he loved the Shariarans. But that was but the Torah, he said he had a mahalach in the sugya, of course, of Rabbi. He had a mahalach with the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariel and how he asked his wife and the whole everything, every Maisa in there, every Maisa, every Gemara that he would focus and learn it and see where can I see in here something that'll be mechazik people, something that'll tell a Rebbe how great he is, something that'll tell a Talmud how great he is. And that's what he would do. Everything was focused around doing such a thing. Just running like this, I want to end off maybe on a little bit of a more personal note. Somebody said somebody told over a Maisa by the Yeshiva, I think, that I went to pick up a granddaughter from somewhere in Lakewood, and the person that he was picking up the granddaughter for has a Down syndrome child. So they went and my Shver went into the house to pick up the granddaughter, and he saw this child. So of course he picked up the child and he hugged him and kissed him, and every time he would come then to the block, he would stop there. And so somebody was listening to this story. He says, why was he picking up his granddaughter? And nobody in the family, like even, of course, my Shver drove all over Lakewood to pick up grandchildren. I'm not talking about that. He would come every Thursday, come out to Edison to pick on my children, to drive them home. Not because he wanted to spend time with my grandchildren. I'm sure that's true, but to give my wife a little bit of a break, that she could save one trip in to Edison, or she could go home earlier. And he did this. We're now in Carteret for 14 years, right? He did this till last year. He would drive in from Lakewood, go to Edison, pick up my kids, bring them home. I can't say every Thursday or every week, but come out on a very, very, very regular basis. And this is what he did, because if he could give his daughter a little bit of a rest, he wasn't resting. He was driving all over. He would come, he would fall asleep, half asleep on the couch because he was so exhausted. But that's what he wanted. That's at Afas Kaicha, the last Kaichas he had. Everything he did, he wanted to help out people and do whatever he could. And maybe we can't get, I was thinking over Shabbos. Imagine somebody reads the Yated article or somebody like that and says, you know what? It says in the Yated that Rabbi Trenk, he was walking down the street, he saw a bunch of Bachrim that maybe weren't so regular Bachrim, and he ran over, he started dancing with them in the street. Now, I'm going to do that also. He's going to go around Lakewood and he's going to go and dance with some Bachrim. They'll laugh him out of it can't be a worse thing to do. The only reason it worked was because it was real. Because, like Rabbi Meir said, because that's who he was, and that's the way it worked. That's who he was. He was somebody who just wanted to do whatever he could for the Rebbeinu Shalom, for Klal Yisrael, for people. Shviger should have the kaiches to go on, the whole mishpacha, Be'ez Hashem, should be a male, it's yaitzer, for all of us.